Having discussed many things related to afterlife, from Leslie Kean's book, which is drawn from developments in parapsychology, we are going to look at what our tradition says. Our tradition. By tradition, I mean mostly Hindu and Buddhist tradition. Hindu and Buddhist tradition. Okay. So that is, we are going to look at tradition in the light of what we learned from parapsychology. So in this regard, I read this book by Swami Sivananda. Title of the book is What Becomes of the Soul After Death. What becomes of the soul after death? He completed this book by 1957. Swami Sivananda who lived during that time was a medical doctor by profession, practiced medicine for a decade or so, and then took to spirituality, and a very well-read person, very knowledgeable about yoga as well as Vedanta, and wrote innumerable books. So I was interested in finding out what Swamiji has to say on afterlife. I wanted to examine what he would say in the light of parapsychology. But what I came to know from this book is that Swamiji knows by that time, by 1957, what all we did under afterlife. Swamiji knows the developments in parapsychology. So, he knows about what happens in a seance room, table lifting, levitation, hand materialization. Swamiji knows even full form materialization. He says there are even photographs of the full form materialization. I haven't come across such a thing. He also knows about apparition creation. He knows about NDE, near-death experience. Though he didn't use the word near-death experience, he knows the experience of a person who went through a coma. And then he knows end-of-life experiences. He says people will see so many things at the end of life, and they may have glimpses of past lives also. Okay. And also he gives many cases of rebirths, just the way we dealt with. Rebirth case is that when a boy or a girl reports past life, and when the past life details are verified, then it is an authentic case of rebirth. Swamiji gives many cases of rebirth. So, I want to say that if you give Leslie Kean's book to Swami Sivananda, he will say, yes, fine, I know it. And if he follows our talks on afterlife, he will say, fine, I have no problem. So, it means that somebody who knows what we know, but also steeped in the knowledge of yoga and Vedanta, is commenting on afterlife phenomena in this book, What Becomes of the Soul After Death. Knowledgeable as well as, that is knowledgeable in science as well as knowledgeable in tradition. Okay, so that's what I want to say. Come to the title of this book. He is saying, what becomes the soul after death? Notice the use of the word soul. We did not use the word soul. So, in what sense Swamiji is using the word soul? I noticed that we said that after the death, something survives. And what is that? We said memory, me-ness, sense of me, that is consciousness, likes and dislikes, predispositions, it can even be certain skills, mind, okay, all this survives the death. The word we used to refer to this, something with memory, mind, me-ness, likes and dislikes, we called it spirit. But Swamiji calls this soul. That's all. Swamiji's word for spirit is soul. It appears from the book. Soul is, the features of the soul are described differently in different traditions or different schools, but all agree something survives death, and what is survived is called soul in Hindu as well as Buddhist tradition. So, to the question, do souls exist? The answer is very, very obvious. Souls exist. This is the soul. And sometimes Swamiji also uses the word astral body for the same thing. Okay, so souls exist, astral bodies exist. And then Swamiji also shares our understanding, that is, we are body plus soul. We call it spirit, Swamiji calls it soul. We are body plus soul. And death means body dead and soul continued. So what is rebirth? Rebirth is soul taking up another body. Okay. So he gives features of the soul which are nothing but the features of the spirit, and he takes body to die, only body to die after death, and then at the time of death, and soul to remain, and it is the soul that will take another body, which is called rebirth. Which means the things we have done under afterlife are very clearly supported by tradition. In fact, Swamiji says that through certain scientific methods, the West is discovering what Indian tradition already knew. That is his position. Fine, reasonable. But how is tradition different from parapsychology? Parapsychology only describes things, but tradition gives a moral, philosophical, a purposive dimension to what is going on. We look into that. In tradition, karma plays a very important role. Swami Sivananda gives one quotation from Chandogya Upanishads 5:10. Okay. That gives a sense of karma. Karma in tradition is defined as fruit of action or life. Karma is the end result. Let us see what this Upanishad sloka says. It says that good acts will place a person among the top varna, and if he doesn't do, he may slip top varna, and if it is worse, he may even be born as an animal, a dog or a pig. So, tradition links karma with social order and also proposes birth even in different species. Okay. And tradition also proposes heaven and hell. Hell ruled by Yama, heaven by Indra. Heaven for pleasures, hell for punishment. But Swamiji says this heaven and hell was more psychological in Vedanta, but goes for detailed description in Puranas. But all put together, you can assume karma in Hinduism is related to social order and rebirth benefit plus heaven and hell. These three. Okay. Not confining to Upanishads. All these three are covered. But what does parapsychology say? As we discussed, we have body 1 plus mind 1, and body 1 dies, mind 1 picks up body 2, and body 2 transforms to mind 2. That is to say, M1 picks up body 2, but a new mind is developed, M2, and then M2 enters body 3, and then it leads to M3. Put differently, you can call it soul or spirit. Spirit enters body 2, but spirit evolves. The evolved one enters body 3. Since mind is one very important part of the spirit, we are calling it mind. Otherwise, you can call it spirit 1, spirit 2, spirit 3. From parapsychology, we can't propose that there is somebody who is ordering these things. It is just that mind is changing. How does mind change? Mind changes, or soul changes, or spirit changes through the experiences accumulated in the life. So, even it means here, soul is evolving or spirit is evolving. Of course, if it is not evolving, it may be even going down. What is meant by soul evolving or spirit evolving? A better mind, hate-free, quiet, composed, balanced, is a better mind. So a better mind, when it enters body 2 and lived well, it becomes even better mind. This can be inferred from parapsychology. Which means whether you believe in Hinduism, Buddhism or any tradition, evolution seems to be a scientific fact. Evolution does not mean every soul is evolving. Evolution means the possibility of improving. Okay, not everybody, but on the whole, improvement. So because soul drops, enters another body, and it can learn superior things. So a life lived well means improved soul, improved mind, a better base for rebirth. Nothing to do with tradition. But in the tradition, that is described as Varna. But of course, if somebody says Varna doesn't actually mean the occupation, Varna is about a quality of mind, then it is a different issue. Coming to across the species rebirth, we have no data about the across the species rebirth, whether it is happening or not. Because all parapsychology data is about rebirth of the people who are born as humans and who died before as humans. There is no across the species rebirth. If that is happening as per the tradition, we have no way. And heaven and hell. Parapsychology doesn't say anything about heaven and hell. But one thing that the tradition says that parapsychology may approve is that what is one's mind at the time of death? Tradition says what you think at the time of death will impact your rebirth. We know from one story of ghost, she was saying that I thought of home at the time of death and so I came home. So probably what you think at the time of death seems to influence. So karma, which is the fruit of one's actions, thoughts during one's life, is supposed to be operating in one way according to the tradition. And how it is operating according to parapsychology is somewhat different. Okay, but definitely the fact that improved mind offers a superior base for the next life should make us think that we should live well. Either you believe in Upanishadic sloka or not, if you believe that something is surviving after death and what survives should be qualitatively superior because it is going to be the base for the next birth, that thinking becomes a great reason, great force, rational force to live well. Okay. So that is saying in general, but tradition says something much more than simply living well, and certain deeper philosophy is conveyed in that. We'll look into that. Okay, now we're going to look at the moral or ideological dimension of tradition. Ideological dimension of tradition is so completely contrary to what we are trying to do, what we are trying to achieve. See, our movement is like this. We have some desires, D1, D2, D3, D4, like this. We want to realize these desires, and we are likely to think if more of our desires are satisfied, then our life is better. This is normal approach. But Hinduism and Buddhism opposes this. What does it propose? It proposes not that you should not satisfy the desires, but that is not the end. All the desire structures put together should be progressively, desire like this now, progressively reduced, like this. Hinduism and Buddhism proposes progressive reduction in the intensity of desire structure. Remember, this is not opposite of desire satisfaction. You can satisfy desire, but what do you aim? The aim is not desire satisfaction. The aim is progressive reduction of the desire structure. And this is supposed to happen across cycle of life and death. This, in essence, is the philosophy of Hinduism and Buddhism. The day you reach desirelessness, then you are out of this cycle of life and death and rebirth. So desire is the central dimension of Hinduism as well as Buddhism. So Swamiji explains in little more detail and looks at things from desire point of view. For example, questions regarding when a soul is born. When? This is a question. Parapsychology doesn't answer when. But Swamiji says, when the desire is more, it is born soon. Desire. And also says, when the desire is more, it may be remembered. He has a point in the sense that so many rebirth cases are the cases when the people died suddenly. Memory is strong, desire was strong. So, definitely, desire is an interesting dimension to explore these issues. And some spirits are earthbound. Swamiji thinks it is because of the desire is not completed. And he says so many ceremonies associated with the dead are about not only how we overcome the grief, but also how help the spirits move forward rather than earthbound. So death ceremonies are supposed to facilitate forward movement of the living as well as the dead. We are supposed to overcome our grief and they are supposed to overcome their attachment. The living, the grief, and the dead, the attachment. So desire is an important thing. Swamiji says, you are born and you have these desires. Maybe if you mature enough, maybe desire will be less. If you die at a late age, and then you die, you spend some time as a soul, and then you take another birth. He says, during this life, sometimes he calls it post-mortem life or intermission life, as Leslie Kean calls it. In this life, when you are living as a spirit, you are supposed to reflect on this life experience and develop less attachment. You are supposed to reflect and learn and then take a second chance at another birth. So birth is the means of accumulation of experiences, and life after death is a mechanism for a reflection of that accumulated experience. You are very fast accumulating, but take time to reflect. So why are we dying? To reflect on what we did during life and be wise and enter next birth. Like this. So we are supposed to evolve. And evolution in what sense? Not in terms of how we can accumulate more wealth in the next life or more name. Not like that. How far you are closer to desirelessness. And so, when through certain life cycles you lose the desire, which is called moksha, nirvana. In yogic tradition, Mahasamadhi. All related to desirelessness. And once there is no more desire, soul will not have to take another birth. So that is to say, it is desire that is making the soul take a next chance at life. So its desire structure has to be burned to a point where it is no longer interested in life. And this in Hinduism is called merger with what is called Brahman. Also Supreme Soul. So when individual soul is stripped of its desire structure, then it refuses to maintain its identity. For example, a bubble. In a bubble, there is some water vapor. When bubble is burst, what happens to water vapor? Water vapor merges with the total water vapor. It has no longer its identity. So what forms that bubble is the desire structure. When the desire structure is no more, it merges with the infinite, which is called, in Hinduism, Brahman or Supreme Soul. To me, the point is not whether there is a Brahman or Supreme Soul, which we will look into later. The point is, all these things are explained in terms of desire. Okay. And when a person is very much alive, he is living, body is there, and yet he loses the desire, then also it is moksha. It means one can get moksha, enlightenment, nirvana during one's lifetime. It is not necessary after death, so that there is no more rebirth. So the moral dimension of Hinduism and Buddhism, or the ultimate goal, is moksha. So we will see why desire is made out to be such a central aspect of these religions. As of now, we are doing more of a knowledge part, but we will look at these things in a more psychological sense when we discuss in detail what is called meditation. Thank you.